Hello and a warm welcome to Money Majlis from Bangalore, India. Today I'm the technology capital of India, Bangalore, to talk to a famous tech personality who's also a reputed venture capitalist, a well-known philanthropist, and a respected media commentator on economy and politics of India. I'm in Bangalore to meet T.V. Mohandas Pai and discuss with him the state of the startup economy in India and his views on the future of the world of technology. But before we start our exciting conversation, here is a word from the sponsors of Money Majlis.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by Aqua Now, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aquanow.com.
Money Majlis is brought to you by E&, a global technology group.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Intellect Design Arena, driving digital adoption in banking and insurance.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Live Digital Bank, powered by Emirates NBD. Trust and innovation combined.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
I'm in Bangalore today to meet Mohandas Pai, the chairman of RN Capital and Manipal Global Education. He is a former CFO and board member at Infosys, India's biggest technology company. He is also the co-founder of Akshaya Patra, the world's largest school meal program for students, and works actively with government and regulators on policy recommendations and guidelines. Mohandas has served on the boards of SEBI, the National Stock Exchange, the Manipal Group, and many other institutions. He has served on several regulatory and consultative committees, including the Primary Markets Committee of SEBI and several IITs. He is currently on the board of Havells. Mohandas is a Padma Shri awardee and has emerged as one of India's most prolific technology investors. He has helped launch over 14 different funds, in venture, growth, and public markets. He also leads a private equity fund, RN Capital, that invests in life sciences, technology, and education companies. Mohan, welcome to Money Majlis. If you remember, we last met in Dubai when you addressed a session for Thai Dubai members on the economic progress of India. I'm very excited to talk to you today about a variety of topics, but most importantly, Mohan, about the state of India's startup ecosystem. It's a lovely, cool Sunday in Bangalore today, and I want to thank you for seeing me on a holiday. I know you work long hours, Mohan, but I'm feeling a bit guilty to steal from your precious spare time on a weekend. And since we are talking about weekends and working hours, would you like to comment on the debate raging in India about the ideal working week? Should it be 60 hours, 70 hours, or 90 hours?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and talk to you. Look, the people who made comments about hard work are incredible achievers. Narayan Murthy, who built Infosys, who helped create the software service industry, who's a global legend. Then Subramaniam, CEO of L&T, one of India's biggest companies, one of the world's biggest infrastructure companies. What they essentially said was to young people, if you want to build a career and be successful, you have to work hard. And Murthy said, try to work a minimum 70 hours. And when Subramaniam was addressing his staff, somebody asked him, why can't we have an off on Saturday? And he said, look, man, you must work 90 hours a day. You must work more, not ask for off. What will you do on a Sunday? Look, keep staring at your wife. How long will you stare at your wife? It was just a remark in passing. But the message was very clear that we had to work hard. They didn't compel anybody to work 60 hours, 70 hours, 80 hours, 90 hours. So I don't see what all this excitement is all about. If people don't want to take their advice, don't take their advice. You think that this is the way you want to work, please do. There's a law for working hours, follow the law. Beyond that, you don't have to. Nobody's compelling you to do anything. But ask any successful person anywhere in the world. How long have you worked and how do you work? They say work is my life. And I succeed because I worked very hard. Saturday, Sunday, it doesn't matter, I work. That's the work ethic they have. Now you don't want to follow that, it's fine. So I don't see any merit in this argument, people jumping up and down, saying, oh, that is not, that works smartly. Everybody works smartly. Everybody works smartly, you don't need advice. Everybody is smart, everybody works smartly. Oh, you got to be productive. Yes, everybody is productive. Those are not the issues. The issues are, if you want to succeed, you've got to put in a lot of effort. It's like passing an examination. The people who come at the top, they put in a lot of effort to compete. I mean, things don't come easy. Things don't come on a privilege. And then I also told people that, look, both Murthy and Subramaniam grew up in an era when India had nothing. We were a poor country, is almost nothing. They had no inheritance. They had no ancestral wealth. They struggled, they came up, and they succeeded very well. Now we have a new generation which is born to parents who are well off. India is doing very well, a lot of jobs, they can prosper. So it's fine. So I don't think there's anything worth commenting beyond that.
Just curious, Mohan, how many hours do you work a week?
Well, I work whatever work is required. Sometimes I work 10, 12 hours a day. I work on Saturdays, Sundays. Sometimes I take off on Saturdays, Sundays. See, to me, it doesn't matter because right now I'm not working for any company or anything else. I work for myself. I travel a lot. So when I used to work at Infosys, it used to be 7 days a week, travel all around, 10, 12 hours a day. So we did it voluntarily.
Mohan, let me start with India's startup ecosystem. It is now ranked third globally after the US and China, with over 140,000 startups, 100 plus unicorns, and is growing at a growth rate of more than 30%. The startup economy has an estimated total valuation of about 350 billion US dollars and is contributing to about 10 to 15% of country's GDP growth, along with the creation of over 1.5 million jobs over the last decade. A phenomenal story that is underpinned on the tech-related growth we have seen in the country, which is in no small measure been catalyzed by the OG of startups of India, which is Infosys. As one of the founding members of Infosys, Mohan, and as a leading investor and mentor to startups, you have been playing a big part as an architect of this growth. My question to you, Mohan, is how do you see this ecosystem developing and growing in the coming years? What is your vision for the startup industry of India?
Well, let me start by looking at history. In the 1750s, UK created or invented the steam engine. That became the age of machines. Till then, China, India made up 45% of world GDP. The only source of power, motive power, was human muscle and animal power. India had a large number of skilled artisans, extremely rich country, agriculture surpluses. Invaders came here to loot us and take away money. But the invention of steam engine in Great Britain changed everything. Because for the first time, you could burn coal to create steam to drive machines, and machines worked 24/7. Machines were efficient. Machines could ensure consistency of quality. Machine could ensure long runs. And that became the Industrial Revolution, and Europe dominated for the first time in human history. I think it's important to understand the significance of that particular event. And that led to the rise of Europe, the colonization of Asia, the loot of India, the First World War, Second World War, killing in war on the industrial scale, then the post-war creation of a new world, rise of democracies, etc. The rise of democracy is directly related to this because in 1919 we saw the demise of the Chinese Empire, we saw the demise of the Ottoman Empire, we saw the demise of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire, the Russian Empire, and the German Empire, right? The age of empires ended because of the war and because of the Industrial Revolution. And that created the middle class. Now in the last 15 years, and we live in the post-industrial era, and there's the global supply chain of the Industrial Revolution to connect consumers to producers, and the people who control the global supply chain, largely in the West, are the people who dominate the world in business. Now, 15 years ago, unique phenomena started, the rise of the internet. Now, the internet is a platform where you can communicate to each other synchronously, asynchronously, 24/7. And when you do that, you can connect to people all around the world because the limitation of time and space is gone. Now, when you're on the internet, you can get free information, entertainment, education, financial services, health services, and you can do business. Somebody sitting in the remote part of the world can connect to a buyer in Bangalore or New York and sell to them, and supply chain goes into the background. Now, when the internet revolution started, the digital revolution started, it was slow in the beginning. It had great promise. That's why we had the internet boom of 2002, 2003, and then the bust. But now, the promise of the digital revolution is becoming much, much more prominent. Look at the world today. We have hyper cloud infrastructure, unlimited capacity on the cloud, so cost of computing has come down. Huge computing power. Apple 16 or 15 has such much greater power than many earlier supercomputers. And then we are coming into quantum technology. Now we've got AI. AI will do 60% of work that human beings do. AI can hasten the pace of work like nothing else. All this has come to at a very low cost. And when these come to, the business models change, the world changes. We are now in the digital revolution. The next 5 years, AI is going to be much more ubiquitous. Cloud costs are going to come down. We're going to have huge cloud capacity. We're going to have great telecommunication capacity to satellites and mobile. We're going to have maybe 5G, 6G, 6G, 7G, whatever G comes. And then we're also going to have quantum computing and the like. And when all this comes through, the pace of change, the pace of work goes. And to succeed in the industry, in the digital revolution, there are three things every country needs: human capital at scale, financial capital, and physical capital. India has abundant human capital, and I'll explain to you why. India has abundant human capital. India has a pretty good physical infrastructure in terms of satellite links, in terms of telecommunication, with Jio coming there, lowest cost of data in the world. Consumption of data is 32 GB per individual as per Jio, and we have solved the problem. We don't have enough financial capital, but we have adequate to make a mark. So we are today the third largest digital power in the world. United States, China, and India, and Europe has lost out. Europe is becoming an American digital colony. We don't see any great innovation there, the rise of digital companies. If you look at the top 10 most valuable companies in the world, 9 of the 10 are digital companies, including Berkshire Hathaway. The only one which is standing out is Saudi Aramco. That's because it's a country with oil, country company with oil. Now, human capital is the one that has made the industry what it is today. Let me give you some data. United States has about 6 million software engineers, 1 million are Indians, 1.5 million people work in the Silicon Valley, 50% are Indians in software. And India has about 6 million people in software exports. We export this year about $230 billion. 60% of global outsourcing comes here. 60% they work for American companies. That means out of 10 million working for American companies, 4 million are Indians. 50% of global hiring in software outside China happens in India every year now. So India is the source of human capital for the best innovation everywhere. And the top 10 software service companies by market value, 5 are Indian. Of the top 5, 3 are Indian. Of the 3.2 million employees, the top 10, 2.3 million are Indians. So India provides the human capital. And Bangalore has about 2.5 million software people out of about 12 million people staying here. And we have about 65,000 IT companies, 25,000 startups, 45 unicorns. We export about $85-90 billion of software exports, and we got about $70-80 billion of capital coming in. And this is the city which is the software center of the world in terms of human capital. And Bangalore is about 2 years behind the sophistication of Silicon Valley. Many people who are not kind to India, who don't understand, think that, oh, Indians are cheap labor, this and that. They're not cheap labor. Let me give you some data. The minimum wages you pay for H-1B in America if they go, and the people who go on H-1B are just about 10-15% of total employees. This very small number. It's about $85,000. That's the money that the person gets. But the company that sends him there and works for another company charges $125,000. $125,000 is not cheap. People hire Indians because of capability, because of high productivity, and the training they have, not because of the cost. Of course, when they come offshore, they get a cost advantage. But people like Microsoft, people like Goldman Sachs, people like, Morgan Stanley look at effectiveness and not cost alone. And Indians are very productive, and Indians are extremely successful in this, like no other nation in history. China is successful, but you have the Chinese firewall to keep Chinese out. Now, the rise of all this has led to the rise of startups. You got about 140,000 startups, about 118 unicorns creating $550 billion of value. We got about $160 billion of capital coming in. Sadly, 80% is from overseas. And India has become the startup center of the world in terms of the number of startups that is coming up. And by 2025 end, we could have maybe 200,000 startups, or 2026. We hope to have 250 unicorns by 2026. Take the value up from 550 billion to about 1.5 trillion in the next 2 years, provided we get money coming in. We have about 31 startups which are listed with about $120 billion of value. Now, this came up because of companies like Infosys, Wipro, TCS, which created the human capital, which created the educated middle class, gave a brand equity to India, and the children of people who first worked there are the people associated, are largely the people who are in the startup industry, because they grew up in a family where technology was the heart of what they did, and they were well educated. So now, human capital is the key. Technology is about people. It's not about putting machines in the ground. It's not about buying some goods and spending billions of dollars. You can do that, but that is infrastructure. So I think India has been extremely successful. Go forward, by 2030, India will be the second largest digital power in the world. India and the US are tied together. All this talk about H1B is baloney. I think, it doesn't make any sense, because the Americans know that is Indian talent and Indian human capital with the force multiplier for their domination in the world. If America wants to dominate the world digitally, they require India more and more. For example, Bangalore has 350,000 chip designers, testers, and embedded software people. China doesn't have so much. Taiwan doesn't have so much. It's here that all the big global chip companies, Intel and Qualcomm and NVIDIA, they have a lot of talent. And I think it's extremely important for the world to understand what India has done.
Mohan, going back to your earlier comment, my question to you is, if Infosys, Wipro, and TCS had not done what they did a few decades back, would India's startup economy, in technology especially, be the same as it is today?
No. The IT service industry led by these companies, which train people. For example, they hired 300 to 500,000 people in a normal year. They train them 20 to 26 weeks in software, and they come from all streams of engineering. Most of the Indian software engineers are engineers. They're not people who have got a high school degree who just learn a computer language. They learn data structures, data architecture, everything else, which is engineering. So it wouldn't have happened without these companies, because these companies invested, they grew, they got capital, they paid very well, they created an educated middle class. The Indian engineering schools and colleges got funded. The data links came up, consumer demand went up, we built a brand, and we worked with the greatest companies in the world who then came here, set up their own captives, set up their own GCCs. So they built the system.
Mohan, going back to your theme of startups, we've seen e-commerce, quick commerce, and fintechs have been the leading areas of activity in startups in the recent years. However, we're also seeing of late the emergence of new themes such as deep tech themes such as 3D printing, cloud, enterprise software, big data, and now increasingly AI, quantum computing, blockchain, and robotics. How do you see the push of these new sectors panning out, and do you see a gradual change in the mix of the industry, the startup industry, in the next decade?
Look, deep tech startups require capital. It's not that we lack enough of them. We got enough of them. We got 6,500 AI first startups. We got about 2,500, 3,000 IoT startups. We got 500 robotic startups. We got about 300 space tech startups. They all come up because there's availability of capital. You need capital for all them. Deep tech requires 5, 10, 15 years of patient capital to succeed. So it depends on capital. If India is able to get $40, $50 billion of capital every year and invest in them, we'll be the deep tech center of the world. Our universities are starved of capital. The total funding in the universities every year for R&D is about 5,000 crores, maybe that's about less than $700 million, right? That's less than what one university spends on research in the United States. So we need funding for research. We need more capital coming in. We need more defense buying of our deep tech, which is beginning to happen now. Space tech took off because ISRO, our space research organization, said they're going to support them. And they were able to raise. They're putting satellites into space, which is very good. But they need huge amount of capital. China invested $832 billion in startups and venture from 2014 to 24. United States, 2.32 trillion. India is just about 160 billion. It's a matter of scale. So it's just not because they can't do it here. We've done it in the US. We've done it in other places. We need more capital. That's all, to take risks.
Mohan, venture capital funding for Indian startups peaked in 2021. But we saw a total deal flow of about $39 billion in 2021. However, funding dropped to $26 billion in 2022 and $10 billion in 2023, in line with the global funding winter. And of course, the macroeconomic challenges that we saw across the world. We have seen funding pick up to an estimated $12 billion in 2024, which is last year. However, over 80% of this funding is contributed by global venture capital funds, active both across early and growth stages. My question to you, Mohan, is how do you see investor interest for the Indian startup space evolving in the coming years? You said elsewhere that we need to see increased domestic funding. How do you think the Indian ecosystem can enable this?
Look, we need public money to come in a big way. In 2015, we went to the Modi government and said we want a 10,000 crore startup fund. They did it. And SIDBI, the Small Industries Finance Corporation, they became the managers. That gave rise to some 125 fund managers and rise to this industry. We need a 50,000 crore fund for deep tech and high tech today to be funded by the government of India through some of the financial institutions. I think it's the best investment they can make over the next 2 to 3 years, because we give 9 lakh crores, $110 billion as subsidies to people every year. Yeah, $110 billion as subsidy. You'll be very surprised. Government of India and the state government spend about $1.3 trillion every year. $1.3 trillion. We invest in capex more than $1 trillion as a country every year. There are only 3 countries who do that: China, United States, and India. It's a huge country. You don't see it because we got such a big backlog and because of the bad policies of Nehru in the first 30, 40 years, which continued by his daughter. So they impoverished us. Now we see this kind of spending. It's going to take time. It's going to take time because scaling up, building infrastructure, spending. So we need 50,000 crores for the next 2 or 3 years to be a fund of fund and a direct investor. Invest in all the funds which invest in deep tech. Invest directly in deep tech companies, and you'll find magic. So I think that's the key, because for private sector to come in, it takes time. Public sector should come in, and these are taxpayers' money. When you're rolling out $110 billion of subsidies every year, what is the harm in doing this? You're investing in the future of India. You're putting about $250 billion of capex in infrastructure every single year between the state and the center. Why can't you put this money? I mean, I don't understand why Delhi doesn't look at it. I don't understand why our chief minister in Karnataka, in my state, which is the leading state in technology, why don't they put at least $300-400 million a year into investment? It's just the cussedness and inability to understand that's holding India back.
Mohan, while we are seeing continued growth of the startup ecosystem, and some of it quite rapid, we are also seeing some challenges on sustaining that momentum. You'll agree that only a handful of unicorns such as Zomato, Naukri, or Flipkart have achieved great success. It seems the startup ecosystem in India enables easier achievement of 0 to 1 growth, which is finding the right product market fit, as well as getting early traction. However, hyperscaling to achieve critical mass and to grow organically seems to be still an area where many startups struggle. Additionally, we are also seeing some of the bigger unicorns going through some challenging times, besieged by governance issues, we are seeing whistleblowing, etc., etc. What are your thoughts on this, Mohan? And what are the key areas that startups need to focus to address this? And what are some of the lessons do you think that we can learn from ecosystems like Silicon Valley or China?
Look, too many Indians focus on one or two things that go wrong. Things go wrong everywhere. I mean, I don't think we should bother about that. That's the nature of the beast. We need capital. How do you compete with a country which has invested $832 billion in 10 years like China and a country which has abundance of capital like America? We need capital. That's the only difference. They know the difference. You want hyperscale, put in capital. When all the companies you spoke about got capital, they were gone hyperscale. And our GDP needs to grow. We have only 3.5 trillion. China is about 20 trillion. US 26 trillion. You're comparing with the three of us. So, China, India, and America have 80% of the unicorns in the world. India has the third largest number of unicorns at 118. Now, if they want to further scale up, they have to invest more capital. And they need to, for B2B companies, SaaS companies, they have to go to the United States and sell because they get more money there. And I think they're doing well. We got a company called Darwin Box, which is into SaaS, HR, cloud. They're better than Oracle and SAP. They got 1,000 customers, right? They're just gone into the US now. They're a unicorn. They can be a decacorn very soon if they get enough capital and grow. So it takes time. We started about 10 years ago, or before that there's not much. When Modi stood up in Red Fort and said, Digital India, Startup India, Stand Up India, so many of the people then laughed, but it's actually happened to create this. And what India has done, frankly, is incredible. Because Modi, of all prime ministers in the world, in history, has used technology to reach out to people. 550 million bank accounts are opened. 110 million farmers get money 3 times a year. About 120 million women get a gas stove. About 70 million people get houses built, all using technology. Who has done that? Modi has done that. 1.3 billion people have an Aadhaar. UPI, 17 billion transactions a month, $260 billion. 45% of digital transactions globally happens to UPI. And we got the India Stack, which is a platform created by volunteers in Bangalore, which is in a public utility. Now, who has done all that? Now, yes, some of the startups have failed because of bad governance. Some of the startups blew up because of bad decisions. But I don't see any greater percentage in India than anywhere else in the world. I mean, there's a smaller percentage, but it gets the news here. Because, so many of the Indian media is very negative. We have a large left here which is very negative because they have not achieved anything useful in their life. They can never achieve anything useful in their life. Look at the state of Bengal. What a disaster. They should be leading. Look at the state of Kerala. There is no activity there, no entrepreneurship. They're driving away people. And for those people who are 30-40% of the media, they write about this small thing. Yeah, there will be failures. There will be failure. That's the nature of the beast. It's the portfolio management. There are failures in America in a big way. There's so many frauds in America. What happened to Blankman? It's a huge fraud, right? The crypto, his whole thing is in question, right? So even in China, many things have happened there. So you should not get worried about that. The key is how is the system going? How are people doing? And leave it to the venture capitalists to decide. Because venture capital is sophisticated capital. They don't require a protection. They're some of the best minds and, people say best trained, best educated people, and they make investment decisions for their clients who are large investors. It's okay.
Talk of failures, Mohan. Do you think the tolerance for failures in India has improved over the years? I mean, we have a role model in the US, the Silicon Valley specifically, where there's a huge tolerance for failures. In fact, failure is celebrated. Do you think that will happen in India sometime?
Look, tolerance for failure, this theory is, I'll debunk it, because tolerance of failure is a function of the opportunities that open in the economy. If there are multiple opportunities, everybody will tolerate failure because you can go from A to B to C. You start a company, you fail, and people like you and you can get capital again, like in America, they call it tolerance of failure. When you're in a country with no capital or low capital, and everybody says, oh my God, this guy is tainted, he can't fail, let's not give it to him, then it doesn't work. But you have surplus of capital, and people understand what has happened, they'll give it to you. What has happened is the risk-taking ability of the average young person has gone up. And why is that? Because they become more wealthy. Look, when I was growing up, I didn't have to support my parents. Even though, I was okay. My father got a decent job, my mother the school teacher, they educated us, but they had to support their siblings. So when you grow up in an era where you have to support your siblings and you have to take care of your sisters, get them married, you can't take a risk. We are nothing because you lose your job or something, you got nowhere to go. Now my children who are venture capitalists have everything. They don't bother because they're well taken care of, they're well off, I'm reasonably well off, so I can take greater risk. Risk-taking ability, it depends on the individual. When people with nothing take risk, that's very good, but that is fewer in number. And a larger number take risk knowing that they will not starve and go on the streets, right? In America, the people with nothing are the people who did greatly in the initial years. Now we are finding people who are probably well educated, who can always go back and get a job somewhere, become entrepreneurs. So I think that is what the economic change that has happened is getting more risk-taking ability in people. I'm told that today, 70% of the outgoing class of the IITs want to become entrepreneurs. About 15 years ago, 70%, 80% went overseas. They don't want to go overseas. They want to stay and become entrepreneurs. Because availability, capital is available. They know that they do very well, they'll become rich very fast. There's enough opportunity for them to indulge in their passion.
Mohan, you must feel very proud that as one of the founding members of Infosys, you helped start the startup culture, the risk-taking culture in India.
I'm very proud. I helped build it. I'm very proud. We wrote the first IT policy in India in 1997. We worked 30 years to have this open. We had worked very hard. We've done it. I'm extremely proud. I'm extremely proud of my country. So when people come and criticize the media and all that, I really give it back to them because they don't understand. People globally must understand it's very difficult to manage and run a country with 1.4 billion people. We are not a Singapore, which is half the size of Bangalore. We are not a UK, which is the size of my state here. UK is 122nd of the size of India. And how can you compare the two? You can't compare. They all pass, idiotic comments on India, not knowing the complexity of India. 29 states, okay? Some 50 political parties, 450 plus state television channels which are free, 2,500 newspapers. Try managing that. Nobody can manage it. It's difficult. The only comparison is China. But China is more a unified country, in a sense, unified government and governance is much easier there because it's very structured. But India is not. So I think India should be looked at very differently.
So tell me, what do you think still needs to be done, Mohan? The government has done a lot already, but what remains to be done in your mind?
Look, the most important thing is capital. We need the government to put in this 50,000 crores to kickstart. We need them to open a system. We got regulatory cholesterol. We got a Reserve Bank of India which inhibits, goes on writing regulations now and then to inhibit you. We got the public market regulator who has to ease up, understand that sophisticated investors don't want protection. We want government to ease up some of the tax laws and open it up, that's all. We need greater economic freedom and more money. I think that's all is required. Nothing else is required. We got public infrastructure links. Geo is there. Everybody is there. That's happening. Infrastructure is getting built. Yes, we got a traffic problem in Bangalore. Bangalore has got 12 million people, 11 million vehicles, 3 million cars, and only 6,500 buses, 77 kilometers of metro going to 100, 170 in the next 2 years. We are way behind, 4-5 years behind. We are a rich city. Bangalore's per capita income is $15,000. $15,000. The PPP multiple for India is 3.5. Yeah, when 3.5 is about nearly $50,000 per capita income. So I think, wealth has come to India, but the Indian political class does not know how to handle prosperity. They know how to live in luxury. Many of them make money for themselves to corruption and allocate money. The bureaucrats live in their big government bungalows, go in the car. They don't know how to handle prosperity. Because prosperity means you have to invest in infrastructure ahead of need. You got to understand it. You got to execute. You need policies for the future. They're very comfortable doing what they've been doing for 30 years. Allocating money and keeping people poor. So India's growth is a challenge for all of them, and we need more capital.
This is a good time now to take a commercial break. Here is a message from my sponsors.
The financial world is changing fast. Institutions need to meet the growing client demand for crypto financial services, but they need a battle-tested platform to build upon.
AquaNow is a leading crypto financial services platform, powering incumbent institutions to launch crypto brokerage, payments, and remittance services for their clients, securely and at scale.
Be part of the transformation. Visit aquanow.com today.
The end touches your life
in more ways than you can imagine.
You want more tech,
more speed,
more convenience,
more entertainment,
more business solutions.
EAN gives you all that
and so much more. EAN. Go for more.
Parents teach their children to talk, to walk, to ride, to read. So why not teach them about managing their money? Introducing the all-new Live Light app, designed to teach 8 to 18-year-olds good money habits. A free and totally secure app designed for them that's always under your control. Top up their cards, set limits, assign tasks, and reward them with allowances. Download the LiveX app to open a Live Light account in minutes, and the first 50 dirham allowance is on us. Visit live.me today. Live Digital Bank by Emirates NBD. Trust and innovation combined. T's and C's apply.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Intellect Design Arena. Intellect drives digital adoption in banking and insurance. Leverage emac.ai, the most comprehensive, composable, and intelligent open finance platform for banking and insurance transformation. Intellect Design Arena.
The end touches your life
in more ways than you can imagine.
You want more tech,
more speed,
more convenience,
more entertainment,
more business solutions.
EAN gives you all that
and so much more. EAN. Go for more.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the Middle East, and Africa's digital payments champion. We make business happen and economies prosper by simplifying commerce and payments. Trusted by over 250 banks, fintechs and telcos, and 130,000 merchants in over 50 countries. Bringing you tomorrow's payment solutions today.
Talking of Bangalore specifically, Mohan, I'm an interested party here because of a house in this city. Do you think the traffic problem of Bangalore can ever be sorted out?
See, we are building 250 kilometers of metro. We are 3.5, 4 years behind because of bad management. Now it is getting done. They got a elevated metro to Electronic City, which has about 500,000 people. They don't have the train sets. They didn't order in time, and when they ordered, it broke up with China, all kind of mess. Now it's coming this year. So I think we are 3.5, 4 years behind. Look at Bombay. They build the sea link. Everybody who goes to Nariman Point saves 25, 30 minutes. They build the link to Navi Mumbai. The new airport in Mumbai is coming up in March, April. The new airport in Newar in Delhi is coming up in March, April. And Delhi's got 400 kilometers of metro. Delhi needs 1,000. Bombay needs at least 500, 600. Bangalore needs 500. We got 1,000 kilometers of metro, another 1,000 getting built. I mean, the execution capacity for this is required, and that takes time, sadly. China went through the pain in the 1990s and the first decade of the 21st century. But they were much more disciplined, much more focused. They didn't bother about regulations and the law, and they built it up. So we have to build it up. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. Bangalore is so prosperous, and we got a very corrupt government here for a very important reason. Bangalore makes up 60% GDP of Karnataka, and only 10% of the seats in assembly come to us. So they use all our taxes, pour it down the rural areas to come to power. And they come here and make money in real estate. What do? So we have to live through it, because now, you see, we are going to have the census. Hopefully census will start and finish this year. Based on the census, there will be delimitation. The seats for the urban areas in India is based upon the 1991 census, because for 30 years, it was frozen. Okay? Because Parliament said that we have to freeze it because we don't want to do it every 10 years based on population, blah, blah, blah. Now they're going to have census, and that time urban areas were 21%. Today, urban areas, semi-urban should be 45, 46%. When the new census comes, more seats will go to urban areas, and the politicians will respond. They'll invest more in urban areas. I'm telling you, $120, $110 billion of subsidies. Everybody wants to give 2,000, 2,500 rupees to every woman to get the votes, because they fail to give them, greater prosperity. But they spend a lot of money. So it is a function of growing up. It's a function of a cacophonous democracy. So we all as citizens have to push, live with it. But let me tell you, today things are much, much better than 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, much better than this thing. Let me give you data. In 1950, when India got freedom, we were the most developed economy in Asia, the richest country in Asia, but Nehru brought in socialistic policies, licensed quota Raj, suppressed private capital. What happened? 1950 to 80, we grew at 3.5% a year. Asia grew 6.5%. World grew 4.5%. We became poorer relatively in 1980 than in 1950. And we were like the sick man of Asia, right? Then we opened up in 80. 80 to 90, we grew at 5.5%. Overseas debt went from 20 billion to 80 billion. And we were broke in 91. And we opened up. We had $5 billion of reserves for imports. And we had no foreign exchange. We mortgaged our gold to raise $450 million from the IMF, from the Bank of England. And then we opened up. From 91 to 2024 March, GDP has gone up from $275 billion to $3.45 trillion, 8.11% a year, every year for 33 years. That's incredible. It's gone up from 5,32,000 crores to 296 lakh crores, 12.2% a year in rupee terms every year for 33 years. That's incredible. Look at what has happened. When you live through all that, you understand what it means. When I was growing up, there was rationing for food, rationing for milk, rationing for almost everything. There was nothing. Yes, and we brought down poverty to 5% now. And India has done very well. Could you have done better? Of course you could have done better.
Mohan, the digital public infrastructure in India has been a key enabler for the startup economy, and we've seen recent initiatives like the Open Network for Digital Commerce or ONDC providing a great momentum. What are some of the other areas that you think need further attention?
See, we need to build hyper cloud capacity. We are building it. We got about 1 gigawatt. We're going to 3 gigawatts in 2 or 3 years. And Ambani has promised to build the biggest data center in the world. It is talk with NVIDIA's CEO. I think that will come up in the next 2 or 3 years. We got to get more. We got to create a satellite constellation around India. Now I think Airtel is doing that, and Musk is coming. I'm sure Ambani will do that. That will develop, and we got to increase the speed. Even though we got 5G, the speed is not up to date. We got to increase the speed. I think these are the 3 things that need to be done. And it's happening because, doing work on the ground is difficult. You got to dig up the roads, you got to lay the pipes, and there are myriad problems. So I think it's important. Now the digital companies are doing well. Bharti is making a lot of money. Jio is making good money. And, this Vodafone is sick, but the government is giving it many breaks to come up. So we have these companies doing extremely well, and that will certainly help.
Mohan, data privacy and ownership has been a point of discussion, as well as growing frauds, things like cybersecurity, etc. There's also a digital divide in India existing, with close to half of the population still not digital literate or even literate. What needs to be done to address these gaps?
No, the gap, we have bridged the gap. We got 1.3 billion people who got Aadhaar. 1.2 billion are alive. Maybe 100 million are dead. We got about 1 billion people who got a smartphone on the internet today. So it's happening. 65, 70, 80% of people are there. It's just a matter of time. See, we need smartphones which cost less than 10,000 rupees. If Ambani and others do it, that will work. It's happening in a big way. And I think the key is we have to urbanize 5,000 small towns. Go to America, all the small towns have good infrastructure. They become university towns, they become good towns, right? Now we are focused only on the big towns and the smaller towns. We got 5,500 census towns. We got maybe about 80 towns, more than 1 million population. Now we got to invest in these 5,000 towns, create decent infrastructure so people will come there, aggregate there, and industry will come, and that will develop. That will help take care of other districts. I think the key is to go to the smaller towns and give money. Urbanization is the key for India's future.
The India startup story, Mohan, has been largely led by a few cities such as Bangalore, Delhi, and Mumbai, which have built up, a robust startup ecosystem and garner possibly most of the funding. However, we are seeing the emergence of a lot of activity in lower tier cities, with specific hubs emerging. For example, Coimbatore has emerged as a hub for engineering services. Do you see, Mohan, a lot of activity picking up in tier 2 and tier 3 cities in India? Are newer hubs emerging, or do you think that everyone still wants to come to Bangalore?
No, Bangalore, because there is enough talent. See, the issue is everybody wants to come here because you got talent. You come here, you want to hire 1,000 people in a particular technology, you can do it in 3 months. You want to get 500,000 square feet of office space, you get it immediately. See, everything is here. So other cities have to build. For example, Infosys went to Mysore in 1999. They got, I think, 7,000 people, but the government has not marketed other people to Mysore. Infosys went to Bangalore in 1999, and they got about 4,500 people. They're not coming there. So the governments of the state have to market, create the basic infrastructure. They're very slow. They should do that. They don't understand. Gujarat has almost no software industry. 45% of GDP is industry. Karnataka, 20% of GDP is industry, 66% is services, 25% is IT. And Karnataka is the richest state in India. $5,000 per capita income for the entire state of 65 million people. So they got to focus, they got to do all the things to create those kind of infrastructure and incentives for people to come. No, I went to Coimbatore, but you have got to build infrastructure there. The government has got to be serious. They're doing small things. Coimbatore is a wonderful place. A lot of engineering colleges, a lot of people. They can become the engineering center of excellence there. But you need to build business parks. You need to build huge business parks and call people and tell them, come and take the place and hire the people. People will come. I went there about 3 weeks ago. It's a very nice city. Go to Mysore. Mysore is coming up as a cluster for electronics now, which is very good. Bangalore for financial side. But go to Bangalore, people want to come, but there's no business, there's no place there, no rental place. You try saying, I want 20,000 square feet, give it to me. There's not there. That's the problem. People will come. And you got to build links. For example, there are flights to Bangalore, which are expensive. You got to improve the road. But Coimbatore, they got to build a expressway from Chennai to Coimbatore. They got to do that. See, you had to build, infrastructure to all the spaces and market them.
Mohan, my next question is about the India growth story. While the India growth story continues to be strong, a substantial number of people are still struggling to make a living or creating savings. Do you see a lot of startups focusing on this segment, something that the famous Professor C.K. Prahlad called the fortune at the bottom of the pyramid, which is estimated to have a potential of $1 trillion in revenues? Do you see a lot of startups focusing on the social sector? Things like, let's say, Sulabh Sauchalaya. What more can be done, in your mind, to encourage focus on this space that can help to achieve a lot of social objectives?
It's not the job of the startup economy to create jobs for those people. It's the job of the government. We need manufacturing. We need labor-intensive industries. We need services and all that. See, the key is jobs are being created in the south of India larger than the number of people coming to the workforce. There's migration from the rest of the country. Jobs are not being created in UP, Bihar and other places, so they have to develop. For them to develop, they have to build infrastructure. Yogi is doing magic there. I go there very so often. I talk to the government there. There's a lot of things happening there. Noida is developing as a big center, and UP is developing. If UP develops, builds all the roads, Bihar will develop. So we're having fast trains in those areas now. The eastern infrastructure corridor and the western railway corridor is all coming up. So I recommend that we got to create a incentive structure called the Special Economic Zone in the 400 poorest districts. India has got some 775, 780 districts. In each of the districts, if anybody comes, give them an incentive of 2,000 rupees a month for 24 months and pay the employer's share of ESI, PF for social security and give them an incentive. People will come. And in those 400 districts, develop the small towns. See, we need infrastructure on the ground. We need road link. Fortunately for us, there's no problem about power in India. We have built the roads. So logistic costs are coming down. The trains have got all built. So links are very good. Connectivity is very good. Airports are very good all over. The load has to improve in the rural areas. It will come when all this comes. We just have to go to the smaller places, focus on them and invest in them. See, India is creating jobs. 16 million jobs are being created every year in the formal sector. They're the people joining the ESI, PF, which is the thing. But 80% of them pay less than 20,000 rupees a month. That's the problem. We got to create jobs which pay minimum 50,000 rupees a month. At least 45-50% of jobs should pay that. For that, we need higher growth. We need a better infrastructure in other areas so that labor in the cities become more expensive. In Delhi, you can get a driver for 20,000-25,000 rupees. That's too low. How can you keep body and soul together with that price? right? So what happens in Bombay? People come from all over, live in the slums, take free power, free water, free everything, and they go work somewhere and subsidize those people because they're not paying for this, right? So that has to change. We should have 100 kilometers outside Bombay, good facilities for everybody to go stay there. We're doing a job we don't pay so much, so Bombay gets decongested. See, we don't have good infrastructure, good schooling, hospitals in many of the small towns. That is what has to be built so people feel comfortable. The aspirations are very high. And India doesn't have a population problem. Our fertility as a country is 2.0 in 2021. Now must have come to 1.9. The whole of the South fertility is 1.7. Bengal is 1.6. Punjab is 1.6. UP is 2.4. So Tamil Nadu by 2035, as per projections, could start to see a shrinking population. We got 130 million people, 13 crore people above the age of 60 now. It'll go to 200 million people by 2030. China has got 250 million people above the age of 60. What the world faces today is not a climate change problem, an aging, a shrinking population problem. 25% of the world's population is actually shrinking today. That's the problem. So India has to invest. India has to invest right and make sure that the cities are liberated, cities get their infrastructure and investment, and the smaller towns get the investment. And then you see a very different India.
Mohan, you've been involved actively in the startup space for many years now, with many marquee investments and exits. You manage many funds with very different objectives and focus. Could you tell us how you approach investing and what are some of the factors that help you decide in participating in a growth story? I'm sure you hear a lot of pitches every day. Separately, what are some of the successes that you feel good about? And what are some of the reasons for failures that you've seen?
Both my sons manage 314 Capital. They manage 550 million. They're younger. They get 700 startups coming for capital in this office every month. They've seen about 40,000 in the last 7 years. And they're doing well. I personally don't invest anymore because, I think investment should be done by younger people who understand the implication of technology and what is going to happen. They probably see it better. They're better risk takers. I'll be too cautious now at this age. And what I can do is mentor some of these startups and help them grow and bring in good governance, etc., which I'm doing. So I think that's good. I'm excited because I see so much of innovation happening every month, every time. I mentor 35, 40 companies. I go talk to them. I'm working with somebody to help companies go the IPO route. I work with policy makers. I try to bring in capital. So a lot of things I'm doing and happening, which is very, very good. And I think the key is we need more fund managers and more capital coming there. So I'm okay. At different stages of life, I think there should be no direct fund manager who invests who's more than 45, 50 years. Because, the people who come to you for capital are 25 to 30 in India, very, very, very young. In America, maybe older. So when they come at 25 to 30, you should know how to vibe with them and how to give capital and imagine what they could do and work with them. A very different attitude is required. We are born to a different generation. Yes, I made 45 angel investment. Many of them are good. We got 5 unicorns and everything is, things have worked out. We got an exciting SaaS HR company, which is this thing. We got fintech companies which are doing very well. We got health tech companies which are very unique. We got a design company, etc. All that is going on. So I think the key is to get that right, to vibe in with the group of people who are doing that. Because see, you want to talk to young people who open up. Indians are nature a little bit reticent, right? They respect age.
So they don't open up to older people, you think?
Yeah, they open up to younger people, they understand it, and they read the right stuff and they do it. They understand the trends, right? Because see, please remember, Suvo, you and I are the analog generation. The people who rule the world are the analog generation, grew up a long time ago. Your worldview is done between 18 to 25. That's a different world. I am partly digital because I worked in Infosys. 30 years I know this stuff. Now my son, who went to Stanford, another fellow is a CA, they are the analog generation. Because they grew up when they had the mobile and everything else. They deal with the world very differently. Children 11 to 13, 11 to 15 are the meta generation, who move from virtual reality to reality. That's the world that's going to come in the next 5 years with hyper cloud, with AI and everything else. Now, how do you deal with them? How do you know new business model? How do you know they can scale up? Part of it is instinctive, part of it is knowledge, part of it is attitude. Right? The biggest risk takers are the younger people because they don't know it cannot be done. We are become older and we've been beaten up and in our mind by risk and all. We work in companies. So you have a risk management company, you have a board, you have this, all kind of mess. So the corporate venture capital never succeeds. Very difficult for them because they got too many structures. So you need risk takers who will bet. I've seen many people come here with a PPT and they get capital because they're able to convince and they succeed. Maybe 10-20% fail, that's okay. And if it fails, they just write it off and move along. You understand? So you require the right kind of attitude, and that's what it is. That's why we need 1,000, 2,000 more fund managers. We got to back these young people. And the portfolio approach, in 25 startups, you'll always have 2 or 3 winners. If you don't do that, it's very rare. You will have about 10 which give you 2x, 3x capital. Maybe 5 or 10 will go bust. It's okay.
Mohan, in most boards globally, we see that board members, at least the majority of board members, are 50 plus. Given what you just said about the younger people being bigger risk takers and being able to see the future more objectively, do you think that's a problem for companies, the age of board members?
No, there's a problem because you see, please understand one important thing. For most companies, they need independent directors who bring in governance. Understanding governance, bringing in governance requires experience. There's nothing wrong with them. But the governance is important because you are a fiduciary agent. What these companies should do is to make sure that if they want to fund innovation, they invest in companies, in funds. They put in money, monitor what they do, and pick up the best companies and invest directly in them. That's the way to do it, not run their own captive funds. Because run your own captive funds, you'll have a manager. The manager is rated on his success, so he'll not take a risk. And he gets a salary every month. And he can be transferred. They won't stay long. Then you go to risk committee and the CFO says, I can't write it off in a balance sheet, I can't do this. Why do you do that? 100 people will say, why you did that? Moment some bad news comes, say, why you did that? So it's a mess. It doesn't work. So put money into funds and let the funds manage it. And you keep a watch and the companies come up and do well, you go invest in them directly. That's what I tell people.
But Mohan, if the boards are run by older people who cannot really look into the future objectively, isn't that a problem?
The board should have all these fund managers come and present to them once in 6 months. They should get exposed to it. I have not found board managers who are against anything. In every company, management decides everything. Boards decide very less. Boards only come into play if there's a crisis, right? So that's not a problem. Yes, it is true. But if the CEO is bent upon doing that and wants to do it, he can convince them. What is that?
But Mohan, isn't it also true that in most Indian companies and even global companies, most CEOs are 50 plus? Is that also an issue?
Yeah, they're 60 or 50 plus, they're getting attacked. They know that. They've seen which are the top 10 most valuable companies, digital companies. They're getting hammered. The market is asking them, why are you not going digital? The market is a great leveler. Everybody wants to be successful. So they're investing in IT, they're investing, they also want, and they know that some startup may come, get capital, scale up and kill them. See, today, mortality of companies is 25 to 30 years. More companies die at an early stage than any time before.
Mohan, your personal story is also a very inspiring one. Growing up in a less privileged circumstances at a time when the country was in a different stage of economic development. There were few jobs when you grew up, and you said yourself there was bubbling resentment and angry young men. What are some of your core values and leadership principles that you've held steady to and that have guided your life, Mohan? And what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs today?
Well, look, the values that have helped me is that, invest in your dream and work to achieve your dream and set your own standards. Don't get bothered by whether people pay you well, people pay this and that, because ultimately what matters is that you invest in yourself. Warren Buffett once said the greatest investment an individual can make is to invest in himself or herself to develop your skills and capability and knowledge. So have a self-motivation. If somebody else motivates you by a salary thing, they're gone. You become a Katputli. You become a puppet in somebody's hand. That's one. Second, dream big and work to achieve a dream. Always be positive. And third, work very hard. What you can do in 2 months, do it in 1 month. But then you'll have 1 month extra. Okay? Because when you're competitive, when you've got to fight against everybody, who succeed? The one who can do things better. If a tiger is chasing you and there are 5 people running, who succeeds? The one who can run faster, not the fastest. Faster than others, right? So you've got to be faster than others in the race. And then keep yourself educated and well informed what is happening, because the pace of change is very rapid. Then build a network. Talk to people, help everybody. I worked with policymakers for 30 years. I help everybody who comes. I go to give talks, and I know I'm very open with everybody. I spend 30-40% of my time working with others, networks, which I don't have to do. I wish I was more selfish and more self-focused. Maybe I'll be richer. So I think you have to be self-motivated. You have to have enormous passion, energy to solve a problem. You've got to have a problem-solving mindset. And then you've got to persevere in whatever you do. And you've got to build networks. You've got to help everybody else. Put community first. If you do all these values, you'll succeed in life. It may take longer. And for young people, I'll tell them, believe in your dream. Be self-motivated. Work. Execute. Show everybody. Strive for excellence. Never be satisfied with whatever you do. Do better. You know, other day I went to the Infosys campus with a Japanese company, delegate and all. I walked around. My God, it's so beautifully maintained. I had built 45 to 50 million square feet for Infosys. It's so beautifully maintained, and they were so happy. All the people whom I had were working there. Because, the culture has changed, and they take pride in it. You go there and see. What a great campus. So beautifully maintained. It's not there in India, not there in many parts of the world. But that's the kind of culture, because never accept shoddy work. Be unsatisfied. He's like PNC Menon in Shobha. Extraordinary man. He's 75 plus. Never satisfied. Go with him for an inspection to any of his buildings. That man knows what he does. His eyes sees, and he will not accept any shoddy work, anything wrong. It has to be the best for him always. So whatever you do, it has to be the best. It has to be top of the line. Never be shoddy. But when you are in business, possibly beware like an American, not a German, because German will want everything over-engineered to the last thing, German and the Japanese. Americans will make release number 1, release number 2, release number 3 and improve just to get market share. So there you got to be more strategic.
Changing gear now, Mohan, education and research have been something that is close to your heart, and you're involved with a variety of institutions such as the Manipal Global Education, many IITs, the RBI's Center for Advanced Financial Research and Learning, as well as through several education-related startups. My question is, what drives you to be involved so closely with this sector? And more importantly, in your mind, what are some of the gaps we addressed in the education system in India today? Do you think the country is producing enough top-tier graduates that can fuel the country's growth in the coming decades? And what more needs to be done here?
Look, let me tell you, education is the greatest gift society can give a young person. It's the greatest gift you can give young people, irrespective of means. So we must educate our children. All children should get 12 years of schooling in India, everywhere. Maybe 40, 50, 60% should go to a college. A bad college is better than no college. So they must get, because 18 to 23, when they're in college, the time when they grow up, their worldviews are formed. They have to build networks. They have to learn to socialize. They learn to negotiate for themselves. And it's a very important phase of your life, because that lasts you forever. And you have to pick up skills. So education is the greatest gift, and that's what differentiates a human being from an animal. And the future is based on knowledge. Future is not based on grunt work. Future is based on technology, knowledge, and science. So you've got to give them good education. And for education, you must give access to everybody. School education should be free and guaranteed by the state up to 12 years. Today, almost every child in India is in school. There are more girls in school than boys. We got 265 million young kids in school. If 100 kids join class 1, about 80 complete class 10. About 60, 65 complete class 12. About 28 go to college. Now we got to increase this, children completing class 12 to at least 90%. That's the gap there. 10 to 12 is the big gap. 8 to 10 is the big gap. It's improving, but you must improve that. And there is poverty, so we've got to tackle that. And it's different by various states. In Kerala, there are no children are not being born in large numbers in the south. College too, Tamil Nadu has got a gross enrollment rate of 4950. 50% of 18-23 go to college. Karnataka is 36. All of the south is about 36. Karnataka is the lowest, sadly, in the south. Whereas Bengal is about 23 or 24. Bihar is 19. UP is 27. So I think we got to increase it to 50 and create capacity, state education, private education. Today, 35% of the kids in college are in the state education, 65%. Many don't have money, so we got to create a scholarship. We got to make sure that you expand the entire system. Then comes the question of quality. Now, you see, people talk about quality. Yes, quality. Quality does not come by squeezing supply. Quality does not come by restricting an MBA course in IIM to 100 kids a year. And, Harvard takes 800 or 1,000. The good institution to take in larger numbers. If you don't tell me the top 10, 20% of the Indian school children are not bright. If somebody goes through IITs and comes out, the 80% of the effort is what they do, not because of the teachers. Now, for the teachers thing, we'll bring in quality, we'll do this, we'll squeeze supply is very wrong. There are only 17,000 kids who come out of IIT every year for a country of 1.4 billion, which is a national shame. As part of the Kakorkar committee, we said we need 100 institutions like IIT, which will graduate 100,000 engineers a year.
But they're expanding, no? There are more IITs and IIMs today than there were, let's say, 10 years back.
They're expanding, but too slow because the faculty, they say, we don't have faculty. Yeah, you don't have faculty. Try to make the best of it. Have larger classes. And then they say, we want quality. What quality? Yes, you need quality, but quality doesn't come by squeezing supply. Quality takes time. See, if 25% of our children go to very good, good quality, that's enough. Because no country has solved the scale. We got 43 million young people in college. Which country has got 43 million? In history, which country has graded high quality education to 43 million? No. Even in America, 20-25% of the colleges are decent quality, rest are not. Anywhere in the world. UK has 100 universities, 20-25 are good, rest are not pedestrian. So, we got to put them in college, give them that. It's happening in a big way. We need to spend more. And people with means have to run scholarship programs. The state has to invest more. So I think it's happening in a big way. And I think the key is the new education policy has liberalized. They opened up so that people have more options. Earlier, it was a one-way street. You got to come here, rigid regime. Now we've got a very liberal regime, which is more focused on the student first. So I think that's good news.
Mohan, you founded Akshaya Patra way back in 2000 with food for education as the primary cause. Today, Akshaya Patra is the world's largest midday meal program for schools, with the 4 billionth meal commemorated last year at the UN headquarters. That's amazing. What are some of the other causes, Mohan, that you're associated with?
No, see, Akshaya Patra came up at a time when I had an emptiness in my life, 99, we did the NASDAQ listing, and I became the best CFO in India for many times. Then I was wondering, what am I going to do with the rest of my time? Because 99, I was about 41. Yeah, born in 58, so a long time ago. So I needed something. So Akshaya Patra came up, and we went and suggested to Madhu Pandit, was the head of ISKCON, that we should start something. He said, what? School? He said, no. Then he said, midday meal, because of MGR and everything else. We started with 1,500 children. We have grown it, put in processes. They got 75 kitchens. They raised 650 crores a year. Very successful. It fulfilled a need in me to give back to society. Because I believe that if you want to, when you grow up in life, you need a cause which is so large, it takes a whole lifetime to achieve. But at the same time, you see progress along the way. The cost is large, but you can see progress. So it's very fulfilling. And I had my career, I had everything else. So, it gave me relief personally and did it. Now we have a scholarship scheme for the Konkani community. We spend about 4 crores a year for the Konkani community. And I think that works very well. And then we have a scholarship scheme for all other people. And then I work with the Chanakya University. I am on the board, give scholarship. So essentially education and policy making and Akshaya Patra. I'm off the Akshaya Patra Trust now. I spent 20 years. So that's adequate.
My last question, Mohan. You are known as a walking, talking encyclopedia. You just quote figures every time you speak. I mean, in the last 1 hour of our podcast, you must have quoted at least 50 different facts and figures. How do you have such a fantastic memory for numbers?
No, I see it comes to me naturally because as I was growing up, I used to read annual reports and public annual reports which came to my father, who was an investor. And I used to read them page to page. I used to read the Hindu, Leo News and Notes. Old timers may realize that. And all that happened, and I had an interest. So I had a collection of 2,500 balance sheets by the time I was 21. I read all of them. I went to the Infosys meeting, and I made sure that, I went to the Infosys meeting and I made sure that I asked them questions. Then I went to the analyst meeting in October 93. Then Murthy hired me. It's a natural interest. Then I worked with Murthy. When I was the CFO, I told him, I'll give you a P&L account with 99.5% accuracy at the last working day of every month at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It is a very ambitious target made by a young person who didn't know better. And let me tell you, that man took it up. At 3:15, if I don't come to his room, he'll call me and say, are you sleeping? Where is my number? I had to go to him, show him budget with actuals. If we're good, we have coffee. He puts in the room and goes away, travels. If we don't achieve, he makes everybody's life miserable. Come with a plan, achieve it, show me how. You are not forgiving. We need a leader like that who doesn't forgive. He said, go do it. That is it. And it is a natural thing for me. I love numbers. And I love to protect my country. I love to talk with data. I love to debate with data. I give data and I read a lot and it sticks in my mind. I don't remember names. I don't remember telephone numbers now. I want to remember my wife's number if I get lost somewhere. So, it's a question of your interest and everything.
Mohan, any tips for lesser mortals like us on how to remember numbers?
No, you must love numbers, read them and remember them and speak about it, and automatically it'll come. First, keep sure that you know 10 or 20 numbers that you like. Then go expand them, and the surround systems will come.
TV Mohandas Pai, tech guru, ace investor, policymaker, and philanthropist, thank you so very much for your time on Money Majlis today in Bangalore. Your views and insights are always like bright rays of sunshine. So on behalf of all my listeners, I hope you continue shining, continue smiling, continue leading the way in venture capital investing and in thinking of new policies that will take the country forward. I look forward to seeing you again in Bangalore and hopefully in Dubai soon.
Money Majlis is proudly supported by Now, the premier crypto-as-a-service provider, now building in partnership with the top financial institutions in the Middle East. Discover more at aquanow.com.
Money Majlis is brought to you by E&, a global technology group.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Intellect Design Arena, driving digital adoption in banking and insurance.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Live Digital Bank, powered by Emirates NBD. Trust and innovation combined.
Money Majlis is brought to you by Network International, the leading digital payments technology company in the Middle East and Africa.
So that was Mohandas Pai talking to us from the tech capital of India, Bangalore, about the state of the Indian startup ecosystem. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. As you know, Money Majlis Season 2 is not just about insightful conversations, but also about consequential causes. In every episode of this podcast, the guest as well as the listeners choose where all the profits of this episode will go. My guest today, Mohandas Pai, has chosen to contribute his Money Majlis gift card of $1,000 to Jaipur Foot, a charity in India that produces and fits artificial limbs entirely for free to people below poverty line who have lost their limbs in accidents. Thank you, Mohan, for choosing to donate your gift card of $1,000 to Jaipur Foot. As a listener, you can choose to redeem your gift card of $50 to the same cause of Jaipur Foot or any of the other 5 causes listed in the website give.moneymajlis.com. The money is from my sponsors, but the choice of charity is entirely yours. So please visit give.moneymajlis.com right now, make your choice, and make a difference to the lives of others. But hurry, this privilege is open to only the first 50 visitors of the website after this podcast airs. That's it for this edition of Money Majlis. Till next time, goodbye. Stay well and do good.